Greetings, everyone. This is Payman, your host for the Leaders with a Heart podcast. And today we have a very special treat, a very special guest. My good friend Geoff is a guy who was just like me, loves sports, has a background in sport, and baseball is his life. Baseball is religion. He's going to talk to us about that. So Geoff, welcome to the show, my friend.
Payman, thank you for having me, man.
A pleasure. Pleasure is all mine. So, Geoff, tell us a little bit just about yourself, your story. What's your story? What's your background?
Yeah, dude, it started whenever I was born, right? I was born on a military base
Oh,
in
wow.
Illinois. Both of my
Wow.
parents were in the Marines.
Wow.
And I have a brother who is 20 months older than I am. And him and I both were born with bilateral hearing loss.
Oh, so,
So, as you can imagine, kind of out of the gate, that kind of created some challenges.
mm-hmm.
And so right shortly after that, my parents got out of the Marines, but my dad was still kind of living that military lifestyle, all over the world. So we kind of
Mm-hmm.
went wherever he went. And so it's always kind of like finding new friends and all this stuff. And I became really just kind of became just like my own type of person and just kind of have like a bunch of imaginary friends and try to escape from everyday life because school wasn't easy for me. I always managed to get the 3.0, 3.5 and all that stuff, but it wasn't easy for me. And I always wanted an escape. And my escape was playing outside. So I got to play outside and I had a ball, man. I had a baseball or a basketball or football. If it was a ball, I was playing with it. And that was just kind of my way to just kind of block out the world. And my parents, I had a great childhood. My parents really encouraged me and really make sure that, hey, just because you have, the hearing disability, you can still do and accomplish what you want to do. And so I figured out very early that I wanted sports to be that thing. And so I chose specifically to play competitively in football and baseball. And so that kind of started my journey on the love for more specifically baseball. And so right around when I was like going into middle school is when my parents decided that, hey, we need to find a place to kind of stay put and try to develop as an athlete and then eventually go on to play college baseball or sports that we want. And we chose Clearwater, Florida. My brother wanted to play for Bob Bowden at Florida State. He was a football player. He eventually goes on to play football, but not there. But then Clearwater, Florida was actually a really great place for baseball. There's a lot of professional athletes that stay there in the off season, and so I got to surround myself with that type of environment and really start to understand what it takes to train and the mindset and the mentality that it takes to be a professional athlete one day. And one of the challenges that I had, and one of the things that I regret the most, was not really understanding what that meant and asking the questions that I could have asked that I had at my hand if I wanted to. I was more of a just take in information type of guy. And so yeah, but that led me to high school, man. And I played for a guy named Steve Sharks, who I was on the varsity team as a freshman, and he let me play. He was a great guy, helped me really develop. And then he eventually leave, and then a gentleman named Darnell Coles come in, and Darnell played in the big league 15 years. So Darnell really kind of took me in. He became kind of my influencer, man, and he really helped me figure out what it is I want to do and what I wanted to take away from baseball, and kind of showed me the path. And so I eventually get drafted, and I chose not to go, and I went to a junior college in Oklahoma. Did really well out there, had fun. It was a very different environment, having been from Florida on the beach, and now I've got all these
Oh,
country
yeah.
guys that are around me. And at the time, I didn't really appreciate that experience, but looking back, that was actually an unbelievable experience. And so I ended up leaving there, and then I go back to Florida, and I go to a college down there, and kind of finish up my career there. I end up getting hurt, and the game got taken away from me. That was a very interesting time, because as an athlete, you always have kind of routines, and you have places to be and things to do, and you're constantly on the go. And for the first time, the world just kind of slowed down. And so it was a very interesting time, a very depressing time, because you're going from an athlete to the civilian world, which is kind of a very big transition, because you don't know how to relate.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sitting there after I got done playing, and I'm kind of debating on whether I want to continue to stay in baseball and help kids, or if I want to kind of go do some other stuff. Well, I went to a baseball game that night, just because I wanted to remember back when it was fun. I made baseball my identity. And so when I did that, it kind of became, if I had a good day, I did good, and it became my identity, and it just wasn't fun anymore. So I went to the local field, and I went where the game was fun again. And there was this one team that stood out to me, and the kids were having fun. They were very well coached. And I watched them, and I was just like, man, I got to figure out who that coach is. And it was a guy named Casper, and he's from Poland.
Wow.
And he's down in Naples, Florida, teaching baseball. He doesn't have a son on the team. He's just a guy who loves baseball. And so we got into having a conversation, and he invited me to practice. And I didn't want to go, but I ended up going, and I'm glad I did, because that kind of changed where my story goes. So I show up at this practice, and he kind of explaining to me what he's having these kids do, and the impact that he was having as a coach. And so I was like, man, that's awesome. So I went and got a job at a local facility. And so now I'm getting into the coaching side of this, but I also get exposed to the business side of it. And so the coaching side is very different. So I got into coaching more at first, more so to figure out why I didn't reach my potential as a player. So it's kind of a selfish thing. What did I need to do? And then then eventually changed into the kids, and then eventually into the business owner. I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but I got exposed to the business side. The business side was very flawed. Mm-hmm. And I was training this guy's son. His name is Daniel Snyder, and this guy he builds golf courses all over South Florida. A very successful man. And I was talking to him about my frustration about, the way the business was run, and how the business owners wasn't really making any money, and how we were working so hard. And so he kind of challenged me, and I always had the entrepreneur side of me, but he kind of challenged me to come up with solutions.
So,
and
sorry,
so,
just to interrupt you. So, what
yep.
was the one thing that was holding these business people not to get to get the most of their businesses? What was holding them back?
Yeah, so I think especially in the baseball industry, facility industry, you see a lot of the Me Too concepts. Like, so here's what he does, so I'm going to do that. So a lot of lesson models, and basically they were all just kind of competing on price. And then it was very seasonal. They didn't have a way to monetize the year round. And so when you have that issue going on, now you're working way too hard to try to figure out just how to keep the door open, than trying to focus on helping the kids get better. So there was a lot of that sleepless night trying to figure out how do we keep the doors open, instead of doing what the one thing that we want to do, which is help the kids get better.
Yeah.
So that was kind of that's what I saw. And then when I started my business, so I said that I'm gonna do whatever they're doing, I'm not gonna do. So They were doing teams. They were renting cages out. They were doing birthday parties. They were letting the soccer team in. They were doing all those things. And I said, okay, look, I'm going to have a facility that doesn't do teams, that doesn't rent out cages, that don't do birthday parties, and that do all that stuff. So now I'm like, okay, this is going to work. There's not a model like this out there. Am I going to be able to do this? So that's kind of where I got into really thinking through, and I started researching the semi group training model that gyms were using, and I said, hey, I'm going to do that model, and then I'm gonna make sure that we're doing programs and not lessons, and so the program is going to be a year-round model. And that's what I did. And it was slow at first because, one, I opened it up in Oklahoma where nobody knew who I was. And then I'm speaking a different language. So I was able to kind of try a model out where I knew nobody and be able to build it, do a successful business. And now I know it works.
So when you shared your idea of doing the exact opposite of what everyone else is doing, I'm pretty sure you get a lot of naysayers, a lot of flags from people say, you're crazy, man. What are you thinking? What do you think you are? So tell us a little bit about that experience. How did you overcome that?
Yeah, no, I think for the right type of people, like if you target the right people, they understood what I was trying to do. And so the first kid that I had that came to us, the dad was all in. When I was going through the sales pitch, he understood it and he was all in. And that kid ended up training with me for the next 5 years, and he ended up going to a D1 school locally. And he was the kid that probably wasn't going to play college baseball, but he developed into. And so that whole transition there and how that whole thing developed really stole the model that we were doing. And then I had a couple people with teams kind of approach me, and we trained the teams, and so we were kind of starting to prove the model out, and the kids were getting the results. Because at the end of the day, for me and what we do, it's about game day results. So, and one of the areas that I felt like I missed out on as a player was, so I was really good at the me part. So the training piece, the doing what I need to do to help me get better. So, but what
position,
I missed out.
What kind of player were you when you were playing? Were you the pitcher, the catcher?
I was an outfielder.
Okay.
So I'm 6'4", 220. At the time I could throw 94 miles an hour from the outfield. Whoa. And at that time that was good. Now that's kind of normal. I could hit a baseball 450 feet. I could run a 6'9". So I was pretty well-rounded in terms of the measurables and what they needed to be able to play and what they were looking for. What I was missing out on was some of the game day results that I needed. So I could hit the fastball. If you threw me a fastball, I hit it. And I hit it far, hard. But I was also a guy who swung the bat as hard as I could. So which led to a lot of swings and misses in the zone. And then if you had a slider, I wasn't hitting it. So that part is the strategy parts of the game. And that's the part, the strategy part is the opponent. It's you, them. So I would focus so much on the me part that I didn't focus on the them part. And I didn't come up with a game plan to counteract what they were trying to do to me. And that's where the baseball world, at least from what I'm seeing, is at. There's a lot of guys doing really good stuff on the training side. But when it comes to game day results and the opponent, there's a huge gap in the player development model right now. And that's what we're trying to solve, is kind of close that gap a little bit. Well, what I do kind of stacks on top of what people do. And it's really cool in the sense that you can teach what you want to teach. And I don't care what you teach. You get results. You do a great job. But at the end of the day, we need to get ready for an opponent too.
So do you coach like individuals, or even do you coach, do you offer packages also for teams?
Yeah, so we have that semi-group model.
Okay.
So we have 4 players for every 1 instructor.
Okay.
And so that's kind of, and then everybody comes in and they kind of go through their own routine based on where they are at. So when guys first come to us, we don't start from scratch with everyone. We figure out where they are at and just keep building.
So does your academy, just following on that, does your academy specialize on newbies or say average players or even advanced players? Or you have different levels, different programs for different, groups?
Yeah, so the people that typically come to us are the more advanced players. We're not
Mm,
for everyone, and we know that because
good.
what we do is that next step. It's really hard. It's hard. And so the people that typically come to us, they know that they want to play college baseball or they want to play professional baseball. And so now we elevate the conversation. So it's not about your swing anymore. So all we do is focus on hitting and pitching. So it's not about your mechanics anymore. Now it's about what are the other pieces. So like on the hitting side, you got to see the ball. You got to be on time, not once, but twice. You got to be on time to see the ball, and you got to be on time to get your foot down. And then you got to understand your zone. And then the last thing that happens is the swings. So a lot of people that come to us have a pretty good foundation on the movement pattern. Now we're trying to say, okay, here's what's happening in a real game. Boom, boom, boom. So now we're trying to get them to understand process and routines that individually for them based on where they're at.
So do you specialize in specific age groups, or because if someone wants to, as an aspiration to become a professional ball player, so that means usually someone, I would say around 13 to 15, that's a right age to get them and to teach them the foundation of all the advanced, as you said, mental mindset, as well as the I don't know how much tactics play a role in baseball, because again, I'm not familiar, but in my sport, football, soccer, it's huge, it's massive.
Right. Right.
But do you get into that as well? Uh, of course, psychology is huge in sports. Doesn't matter what
Yeah.
sport you're
Huge.
on. It's
Yeah.
it's 90% of everything, because again, even though it's you're competing as other people, your main competition is first and foremost right here.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
do you specialize in a specific age group or gender, or it's just pretty much?
Yeah. So it's all baseball players, and
Mhm.
it's all boys, and
Okay.
we start at 9 and we go all the way up till 29. Pro guys and stuff.
Hmm.
I tend to focus more on the older group, the guys that are
Okay.
getting ready to make that group to the college and pro ball area, and then we got some guys that work with the younger guys.
Do you
But
have
yeah, so really, you're right, man. The mental side of it is huge, and the mental
huge?
side, the way we like to talk about it is the mental side. What you're thinking, what you're feeling, and how that directs your action. That's going to be the mental side, and then there's the strategy piece, which is going to be the opponent. So that's how we like to break it apart. Is so yeah, your mental part's super important, but your strategy part is really important too.
So for the guys that are really good, the top of the cream in your academy, and they're ready to make the leap to the next level, do you have some kind of programs or contacts, networks with, say, colleges, or even maybe with professional ball clubs or whatever? Do you have anything in place, or how does that work?
Yeah. Yeah, so we have our program called the Strategic Advantage Baseball Process. So there's
Hmm.
4 levels. There's going to be the competitive advantage, which is again the swing and the U part, and then we have the athleticism, the strength. Then we have what we call mastery. So taking that unique skill that you have here and really master it, because until you can get to mastery, you can't develop strategy. So
Hmm.
the top 2 part is the U part that we talked about, the individual part, and then we go to strategy, and that's the opponent part, and then that's game day execution. So in the off season, we're going to focus on the competitive advantage and the mastery piece. And then as we get into preseason and in-season, now we're getting into game planning, the strategy piece, and game day execution. So every year we go through that whole cycle. And then guys develop their skills. Now, as far as getting to the next level, yeah, we have contact, but more importantly, what we do is teach these guys the process and get them to help themselves do it. So at the end of the day, college coaches, at least on the baseball side, they want to develop a relationship with each kid. So we teach them how to have those conversations and how to talk to them to eventually see if you're the right fit for that program, you know, financially, academically, socially, and talent-wise. You know, there's got to be, you got to understand if you're the right fit. And so, yeah, so then we become like a recommendation from there.
So in general, what is the success rate in your academy, let's say for players to go to the next level, whether it be to go to a college and get a scholarship versus, or even some that are even able to get to go pro?
Yeah, so almost all of our guys get the opportunity to go to that next level. Now, the guys that don't are the guys that have decided that, yeah, I don't want to work this hard. So, and we get that. That's real. That the guys are saying, hey, this is a little bit harder and a little bit more work than I want to put in. And those are the guys that typically decide, hey, the game's done with me. So if guys can make it through their whole 4 years and really stick through the program and really still love baseball, they're going to have an opportunity to play college baseball. And the guys that kind of go through the program and eventually start to kind of dwindle out and decide that they don't want to play anymore, then they obviously don't. But they leave with a great experience, and I still get texts from guys all the time about, hey man, you were a big impact, and can you help me write a letter of recommendation for academics and stuff like that. So
what's your most successful player so far?
Right now in Tulsa, so we have like 3 or 4 guys that are D1 doing really, really well, kind of being their number one guys, stuff like that. So those same guys are going to have an opportunity to play pro ball here in the next couple of years. So this COVID thing kind of threw some things off for some of these guys. But yeah, no, but in Tulsa, we've been here 7 years now. So we've had some pretty good success getting guys to the college ranks, and then some of them are now going into getting ready to be looked at by pro ball.
I'd like to ask you a question which might sound newbie for you, but that's something I always wondered. For example, for me in football and soccer, I can play with both feet. For example, my right foot is more powerful, but my left foot is more accurate. Same thing. I've noticed the same thing in tennis. For example, right-handers are more accurate, and left-handers are more powerful. Does the same principle apply also to baseball players? Like say a left-hander versus a right-hander?
Well, I think so. Let's say I have a right-handed hitter and he jumped over to the left side. What we see typically is on the left side, they're actually going to be kind of a better hitter. They're going to see the ball better, and they're going to actually just take good swings. The power is always going to be on the other side, so that's their dominant side. And I typically see that too. Like when we have left-hander guys that wanted to be righties, it seems like they have more power righty too. So it's weird how that worked. I'm not saying that's like that all the way across the board, but you know, baseball's so hard. Most guys just try to focus on one area and one side. But we do. I encourage guys to learn both sides just so you can balance your body out. And we got probably about 4 or 5 or 6 guys that are really going to put in that extra work to swing on that other side. But typically, the right side is where the power is at. And then the left side, they see the ball better and they make more contact. So it's kind of weird.
Are you a right-hander or a left-hander when you play
I was a
baseball?
righty. Now I write lefty.
Oh wow!
And I do a lot of things righty or lefty, but I throw and I hit righty. I play golf right, so it's weird.
Oh wow!
I wish I was a lefty sometimes though. Sometimes I wish I would have hit left, but it is what it is.
Yeah. All right. So for you right now in your business, what is your biggest challenge currently?
Yeah, so the challenges in my business was more so in the beginning. Whenever I was I was in a very new market, and I was trying to prove out a concept that was different. And then I was also in the mindset of work hard, you know, put a lot of work in and work hard, and then that would manifest itself into something. And so that didn't go, that wasn't necessarily the case and what it needed to be. So that was a challenge for me to figure out, okay, I'm working hard. I'm trying to manifest this stuff. Um, the results aren't coming like I thought it would.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I learned that there's actually certain skills that you need and became more skill driven because I started to kind of think about baseball and how do I advance as a baseball player? You know, you have your process, your routine that you know work, and then you have certain skills. And I started thinking about business. I'm like, okay, so I'm missing out on certain key skills to allow me to advance. So that was my biggest challenge in the beginning was why am I working so hard and it's not manifesting into the success that I thought that was going to come with that. Don't get me wrong, working hard is important, but when I was studying people and they were like, yeah, work smarter, not harder, you know, it's like, what does that mean? And I think
Exactly.
over the years, I kind of started to understood what that means.
Mm. So now, looking forward, now, what would be the next step for your business, the next level?
Yeah, so my academy right now, I want to eventually sell that. And then right now,
What's your timeline?
I want to do it in the next 4 years.
Okay.
So that's kind of the time I'm looking at. So right now, I'm also in the process now. So my why had changed over the years. So I started with me wanting to figure out why I didn't reach my potential. And then it get into, hey, let's help as many kids as I can possibly help. And now, because of the COVID thing, I really got exposed to how many businesses were being shut down. My business grew through COVID.
Really?
And a lot
Wow.
of people, yeah, my business grew and a lot of people are shutting down. So I was like, man, there's a lot of great baseball guys that are leaving the game because they can't figure out how to make money with it. So
Sure.
now I'm like kind of making that transition. Like, let's help those guys because the game needs those guys in there. We need great coaches to stay in the game for the sake of the kids and the next generation. So, but they also need to make a living for their families. So that's kind of where I'm going with what I'm doing.
So how are you helping these guys? How are you involved in helping these guys? That's going to basically segue very nicely into what this podcast is about, the leaders with their hearts. I can see you're a very passionate guy, and that's very beautiful, commendable thing to do to help these guys. So tell us more. What are you doing exactly to help these guys that are currently, in a challenging time?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of it really it all comes down to mindset. You know, I think the mindset, and this is what I've learned, is the mindset really is going to hinder you from getting where you want to go. So, and then as you get more success, the mindset changes, and you have to adapt that. And I think what you kind of do as you start to go up this ladder of success, the people above you like the quantity of it gets smaller, and so you have to be very careful about what you listen to and who you listen to. And so, but you also understand what you're looking for when you get to a certain area. So like certain guys stand out to me. You know, certain guys that are like, a lot of people talk about him, but I don't quite understand it because I'm not ready for that. So I'm here. So I need to focus on getting here and here and then here. But it's all mindset. So I feel like a lot of these guys it's the thought behind the thought. You know, the initial thought, you can lie to yourself. You can tell yourself any story you want to tell and you can believe it. But the thought behind the thought matters. And I think that's the biggest thing is understanding, okay, what is the mindset? After that, it's going to be the business model. So the lesson model, chasing teams, trying to cater to everybody. What we try to do is say, hey, this is the one thing we do really good at. And we're going to be really, really good at that. And we're going to focus for one specific client. And we're going to be the best at that.
Who's your ideal client?
So for us, it's going to be that guy so on the pitching side, he's the guy that throws really hard, but he can't pitch. On the hitting side, the guy that has a beautiful swing, but he can't hit. So there's a difference between swinging and hitting, and there's a difference between hitting and pitching. And so that's what we have to try to get guys to understand. And now, there's enough business for everyone. We're all looking for a very specific client, or at least you should be. If you try to cater to everyone, you're never going to make it. So when you start
Absolutely.
narrowing down,
Mhm.
who you're focusing on, and the message you're communicating to them, you're going to be able to get the business that you want. But you gotta refine that message. You got to understand
Absolutely.
what that person's looking for and what triggers them, so that you can get them. And I think that's where we're trying to help guys
And
understand.
yeah, and that's something that I'm very passionate about. That's also something that I've been writing on the on the coaching group a lot, is the identifying as clearly as laser focus, because a lot of people struggling with that. They try to, yes, they come from a position of good intention, good heart, but trying to help everyone with all the problems, that's something that's a job that only God can do. That's not that
Yeah,
us mere mortals can do. So for us mere mortals, we have 24
yeah,
hours in a day. We have a lot of other things to take care of. So we need to focus on one specific person, as
yeah,
specific as possible, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter
yeah.
what we're selling. I'm an e-commerce guy. I'm not a coach. It doesn't matter whether you're
Right.
selling products, physical products or services. At the end of the day, it's a people's business, and you're dealing with people, and you have to ask yourself two questions: who am I trying to help and serve? And then how is my product, my service going to help that specific problem for that specific person? Because if you try to go too
Yeah,
vague to whatever, that's going to dilute your message. And it's going to be you, because you want to be able to connect with the person so
right.
they can see as one of your own, and they can relate to you. For example, you're a baseball guy. If I'm a baseball guy, I say, hey, this is the guy I want to work with. But if I'm, say, a basketball guy, me and you may not be able to connect because we
Right.
don't have the same thing. Exactly. So that's the thing that I see a lot of people, yes, they come from a position of good intentions,
Sure.
but they need to laser down their message. And that's beautiful that you've identified that. That's because, I
Yeah,
mean,
no, absolutely.
not
It
only
used to
beautiful,
be
but
guys.
mhm. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There used to be guys that come in and say, "Hey, I need catching lessons," and back in the day, I was like, "Yeah, man, I can do that. Let's do it." But then over the years, I was like, "Man, I'm just not good at that." So it's like
Yeah.
I would rather focus on what I'm good at, and trust that if I can communicate to my ideal avatar, that the business will come, and it will. But you just have to clearly communicate to that person, and then what's the benefit? What's the pain point? That they're trying to figure out, and then what's
Mhm.
their journey? So,
So
yeah,
are you known more like the pitcher guy, the catcher guy? What's your
I'm the hitting guy.
the hitting
And
guy?
when
Okay.
yeah, when I played, man, that is all I worked on. I specifically wanted to be an outfielder so that I could do dry swing when I was in the out there, waiting in between and I wasn't very good in the outfield. I could throw, but man, I never worked on the outfield stuff because I wanted to hit all the time. And that's why I went in the outfield, because I could have my zone time to where I could just imitate my dry swing and stuff like that. So I became very obsessed with the hitting side of it,
That's
and
key.
and not not the swing side. Now they're swinging and they're hitting, and I think I was always so focused on the swing side that I didn't hit, and that's where the industry is at right now for baseball. With so many great swing guys out there, awesome guys, but not a lot of kids can hit. So
So when
that's what I'm
someone,
kind of focused on.
that's for sure. When someone joins your academy, let's say they want to improve their or take their the hitting game to the next level. How long does it take them to go from point A where they are to where they want to be, following your methodology and all that?
Yeah, it depends on where they're at,
Mm-hmm.
and it depends on what they want to do. Some guys want to play pro ball. Some guys just want to have a good high school experience. Some guys want
Sure.
to play college baseball. So it really
Mm-hmm.
depends on where they're at and where they want to go. But they're going to see results quick because they're going to implement routines and processes that they haven't implemented into their game. They're looking at the game from a different perspective than they have before. Now, where they will struggle at is when they take all the information and overthink in a game. So that's always that next hurdle is, okay, now I know all this stuff. I go in a game and I overthink it and I don't do well.
All
So
comes down
we
to the
have to say
mindset. Yeah.
it's all the mindset and trusting your routine and your processes, and it all come together.
How important is visualization in baseball? Like I hear that all these top gurus, even Tony Robbins, say, picture in your close your eyes, picture in your mind the perfect kick, the perfect shot, or whatever. Is how is that? How important is that in baseball?
Very important. Where I always start with our guys is with their pre-pitch routine. So in
Mm-hmm.
the pre-pitch routine, we're going to go through the mental, we're going to go through the physical, and we're going to go through the intellectual. And
Mm-hmm.
the intellectual is going to be the decision-making process. What pitch do I think is coming in at this time? And then when I have that, I need to see that in my mind. I need to see the pitch that I want, and I need to see myself taking a good swing on that. So very important. And what's interesting now is it's getting a little bit easier to teach because there's apps
Oh
that will
yeah.
show you a pitch you're throwing. So now we can start saying, hey, watch this app, see that ball come out of the hand. Now I want you to keep that mental picture in your mind when you go out into the batter box. So it's getting a little bit easier to teach that concept. Before it was like, what are you talking about? You know, some kids will get it, some kids wouldn't. But now that we have the technology showing us stuff, we can now visualize and verbalize what we want them to accomplish in the visualization part.
Mm-hmm. How do you see baseball? During this COVID area and post-COVID area, do you see baseball as growing, as stalling, or as declining as a result of that?
Well, so
I mean,
baseball,
sorry,
yeah,
let me put that correct. When I talk about baseball, I'm
yep,
not talking about professional baseball. I'm talking about the grassroots baseball. That's what I mean.
yeah, yeah. No, baseball in a very interesting place. Um, the past year they canceled college baseball like three
Yeah.
weeks into it.
Mm-hmm.
So there was this uproar about, well, what about all those seniors they didn't have their final year, and so the NCAA granted all those kids another year of college baseball. So now we have a roster that's over full. So that's going to impact the next 4 or 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
excuse me, of going to college baseball. You know, the availability of roster spots and scholarships. And so what's going to happen now is really good players are going to go to somewhat of a mediocre school. And it's going to be okay because it's going to make baseball really good. You're going to have to be really good to play college baseball now. And so for us, that's good because now the training has to be better to be able to. Now you got to be even better than you were before to get to that level. So it's going to be interesting to watch the next 4 to 5 years as this whole dynamic works through itself. So all I see is baseball is actually going to get better. They've actually cut down the draft too. The draft used to be 40 rounds, and now it's only
Wow.
20. So 20 rounds. So now you have 500, 600, 700 kids that are now going to stay in college baseball. So it's going to be interesting to watch. I think it's going to get better, but now the kids are going to have to train differently.
Let's go back to a little bit. What made you fall in love with baseball initially when you were a young kid?
You know, I was so obsessed with hitting. Like I think I love the challenge of seeing a baseball come at me and then I can hit it 450 feet. I loved it. I loved the feeling of it, and I think it's so hard, it's challenging. I think I love the competitiveness of, you know, hey man, I'm gonna beat you, and I think it all came to the hitting side of it, and the obsession I had with being able to hit a baseball far. So and that's what drew me to baseball, and I think too, like I love the baseball. You can't focus on results. You got to focus on the process, and you checking boxes every day, checking boxes every day, checking boxes every day, and the results may still not be there. That game that hard,
That's a
but
beautiful metaphor for everything in life. Everything.
it
It's
is.
not about the results, it's about the process.
Yep, absolutely, and I love that about it, and that's why I love teaching the kids about it. It's like, hey, it's all a process, but you know, the whole trust the process is like a big thing, it's like a big lingo right now. But it's like, no, man, we got to have a real process, because when you have a
Mm-hmm.
real process and you have a real understanding of your process, now you can repeat it. But if it's just a lingo and that there's no real process behind it, which is what you see a lot, it doesn't really work. So, but no, I love teaching a process and that part of it.
Yeah, that's for sure. And just like you mentioned, it's all about the journey. A lot of people in business, for example, they focus on say on the goal. I want to make $1 million, but the $1 million, that's just a byproduct. For you to get $1 million, it's most important is the journey. Who you have to become, what kind of skills you have to learn, what kind of mindset you have to internalize. Those are infinitely more important than the end goal, the $1 million. The $1 million is just the reward, but
Yeah,
most people focus just on that, and I think they should need to focus on the other way around. Who do I have to become on the journey? Because that's infinitely more important, because $1 million, someone can take it away from you like that. But what you learn, what you go to, who you become, nobody can take it away from you.
absolutely. And I think it's easy to get caught up in that. Like, hey, you get into business, you're taking
Mhm.
on a huge risk. It's scary. It's like, man, I just want to. I'm working my ass off, and I need to get paid. And that's real. But I think too, like when you get caught up in that, you don't focus on the journey, like you said. And when you don't focus on the journey, then you don't embrace it, and then you quit. So the journey, like the journey is awesome. And when you look back and you kind of try to connect the dots, it's like, oh, okay. But no, but skills, like you said, is where it's at. That's the biggest thing that I've learned. It's all about skills. If you want to make more money, work on your developing and mastering skills.
Master just that one thing. For example, we have an Amazon FBA Academy. Like for us, when we were before starting, we looked at the so-called competition, and they all making those big claims. Let us teach you to make $1 million and not, let's say $10,000 in 30 days. Like, well, that is possible for someone, but for a newbie with no experience, it's near
Yeah,
impossible. So instead, we focus. Okay, what do we need? What is the number one skill they need to master to be able to do that? So for us, it's to be able to find, select, source, and launch your first product. Once you know that first winning product, once you do that, then you can duplicate those skills and launch your second, then your third, then your fourth, your fifth.
right,
And that's when you hit your home run, you hit your $10,000 goal or whatever. And that's
right,
and that's the same thing I see with a lot of people. Like I see, especially in the group, we see people say, "Oh, I help." For example, I want to make 6 figures. Okay, but for you to make 6 figure, what do you need to master? If you're
right.
if you're a business coach, you need to master how to get your first paying client. And what skill do you need to learn? Who do you have to become in order to be able to get that first client? And once you do that, then you can duplicate that, get your second, third, and fourth, and so on. And that's what a lot of
Yeah,
people are missing.
yeah. No,
So,
it's really simple when you think about it. It's like, okay, this is simple. All I got to do is get a client, put a course together, but it's not easy.
mm-hmm.
Simple, but not easy.
Yeah,
So, but no, I love what you said there, because you're absolutely right. Yeah.
yeah. So going back to baseball, what is your favorite team, professional team? If you have any.
So I like the Chicago Cubs. I got drafted by the Marlins, so I got
Oh
a
wow.
soft place in my heart for them. So the Marlins and then the Chicago Cubs.
Mm. Why Chicago Cubs?
I think I was born in Chicago. My mom's family
Oh
is from
wow.
Chicago. My mom, dad was a big Cub fan, and
Mm.
so I think naturally I just kind of grew into that. And but I love baseball in general. I'll watch anybody,
Mm-hmm.
but if I had to pick a team, it's going to be the Cubs, man. So.
Yeah. How are they doing these days? Are they good?
Well, I mean, COVID kind of
Yeah.
put a twist on the season. We only played 60 games this year. It was a challenge for a lot of our guys, which I get, man. I mean, mentally, that's got to be a grind. Your off routine. Um, you're worried about your family. I mean, that's real. All that stuff's real. So
Sure.
they'll be all right. They got a new manager, so it's going to be a couple of years, but we'll be all right.
Yeah. Hopefully. And just before finishing, so what would be the number one tip you would give to someone that's in baseball right now and want to just improve their game?
Yeah, I think getting to an understanding that there's the you part and then there's the them part. I think that's been a huge transition for a lot of guys is understanding that there's an opponent and you need a game plan against what he's trying to do to you. So there's three parts. There's the opponent, there's that team, what that coach's philosophy, what do they typically do, and then what does that individual pitcher do? So when you can take the time to develop a game plan against those type of that the opponent and those kids, you're not to say that it's easy because the game's hard, but it's easier because now you can anticipate what's coming. So I think the baseball players, yeah, you need to do you, man. You need to develop, but at the same time, you gotta get the strategy part.
Strategy and master. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what sport you're on. You have to keep always. It's a game. The love of the game. If you don't have that, there's no point playing it.
Oh, absolutely. Try not to make it your identity because that's the mistake
Yeah.
a lot of guys make, and then the journey ends, and you're like, I really didn't enjoy the last piece of it because I made it so much of my identity that you kind of leave the game pissed because you're like, I didn't really enjoy that last bit of piece because I didn't expect it to end that early, but then yeah, you're like upset because you didn't really give it all you had because you were just so hung up on that one game where that one at bat where this guy beat you and you're like, no, I was ready for that, and then you sit on that for 2-3 weeks, and then next thing you know, you're in a slump and you're pissed. So
Hey, listen, man. I love talking about sports, especially with people that are sports crazy like me. We can talk for
yeah,
hours. But
sure.
when if someone wants to reach out to you, how can they reach you out?
Yeah, so we got there's two different ways. The academy is going to be athletic-mission.com,
Okay.
and then my coaching for facility owner is going to be sixfigurebaseballacademy.com. So you can go there and you'll find me there.
Okay, let me just write it. Sixfigurebaseballacademy.com.
Yep.
Okay. And the first link you mentioned is athletic.mission.com.
Yep.
Okay. And you said you also have your own podcast. It's
Yeah,
called,
dude. I got.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I got three of them. One
Wow.
of them I'm not doing much with anymore. That was the Baseball Awakening. That was all that was interviewing a bunch of people. I learned a lot, and I grew my network. The second one that I'm doing right now is called Strategic Baseball Podcast.
That's
and
one I was listening just before. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're talking about the strategy side of the game. And then I have a Six-Figure Baseball Academy one that I haven't really done much with it yet, but I'm getting ready to.
Okay, beautiful.
I love podcasts. I love it.
It's amazing because it's a great way to connect with awesome people from all around the world. Like when I was living in Hong Kong, I was doing podcasts with people and the US and Canada. So like for them, it was 2:00 in the afternoon. For me, it was 2 a.m. in the morning. I didn't mind that because, it's always good to chat with cool people doing awesome stuff.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you very much, Geoff. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And this is going to be live maybe within a week or so. Going to edit it. It's going to be on our YouTube channel. So yeah. So thank you very much and have a great day. We'll talk in a bit just after this. Take care, guys.
All right, man. Sounds good. Thank you.
Ciao.